Hey guys, welcome to the Ducks and Dawgs podcast. My name is Mike, here with my co-host Matt, and we have two guests for today's show. As we all know, Oregon is traveling to Columbus to take on Ohio State, and Washington is staying at home, I believe, to play Michigan. Or are they headed to the big house?
They're headed to the big
Elijah.
house.
They're headed to the big house to play Michigan. So the two rivals are playing the two rivals. And before we get into any of that, Matt,
Hey, man.
Washington started off week one. They played Montana. Last time we talked, you said if they lose to Montana, everybody needs fired.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to backpedal on that because that would just make me look bad. But here's what I'm going to say. They're not going to clean house, knowing that administration, knowing the athletic department, they're not going to clear house. So my opinion could potentially change down the road. But if you had to ask me right now, get Jimmy Lake out of there, get John Don out of there, clean house. But that's not going to happen. So here we are. And now I get to unload my feelings from this Saturday on how that game went. I don't even know where to start, to be honest with you. I guess we could talk about the O-line, supposed to be one of the best in the country, that got bullied around by an FCS program. And also, I should say, when I am talking about this game, I'm not at all dissing Montana. They're a great football program, but also they're an FCS school. Washington, a top 20, used to be top 20 team, should not be losing to them. So I'm just getting that out of the way. I could go down the list. I could talk about the offense being flat. I could talk about, other offensive problems stemming from the O-line having trouble. As much as I want to rip into the defense, there isn't much to rip into them about, because realistically, when an offense can't stay on the field, a defense is going to get tired and they're eventually going to give up points. Giving up one touchdown and 2 field goals should not lead to a loss. That is a still half decent defensive performance considering how much they are on the field. What it all stems back to is Jimmy Lake, obviously, and that coaching staff, which was clearly the problem. Rumors of them walking out to the stadium just thinking they were all that, no organization, no clear leadership on the sideline, no clear leadership from the actual coaches during the game, players seeming lost, no sense of leadership or urgency at all. Makes me think that they just weren't ready. They were looking forward to this week against Michigan, which, is fair, but you obviously still have to go 1 week at a time. It's football. And I think Jimmy Lake just kind of waltzed into the game thinking, we're going to roll them and then we can get ready to go to Ann Arbor. And that wasn't the case because Montana is a decent football team. And, they got to do some soul searching this weekend. Like, there's just so much that goes into it. You got to hope that this lights a fire under Jimmy's rear end, that he can start to figure things out. He can start to get that locker room back. He could start to get things together. But honestly, I don't know. Like, I want to say I'm confident that they're going to get things turned around, but I can't say if they are or aren't. I don't know. This weekend's really going to be the determining factor.
So would you agree with the thought that Washington and Michigan are in similar phases of their program, that they're really trying to not in the sense of like, they're both terrible. No, like,
yeah,
they both have coaches who haven't done what they were expected to do. Obviously, Lake was expected to transition from Peterson really well, and Harbaugh has been expected to, let's just say it, beat Ohio State once, and neither have been able to do what they were expected to do. Do you think they have similar issues, or what do you think that is? I know we thought originally it was just recruiting, but obviously it's not just recruiting.
Yeah. And there's already the parallel there with the 07 Michigan team. I mentioned it before we started recording, there's already that in place. Like, that's already like, oh, wow, there are some parallels beyond, recruiting, whatever. I don't think you're going to be able to get a solid answer until the end of the season when you can look in retrospective. And it's just going to have to be a down the road thing. I think if they're on the trajectory they are on now, I think if Jimmy Lake stays around for a couple more years, then yes, you're going to be able to make that comparison. Obviously, Jimmy Lake is in his second season and Harbaugh has been in Michigan for much longer than that. So I feel like it's not quite fair to compare them just yet, just because different situations, different tenures, stuff like that. But it could be there down the road.
Lake did inherit a much better program than what Harbaugh inherited. But Justin, going into that game, after watching Washington against Montana, how confident are you?
The thing is that I think that Washington's probably sitting there like, hey, we got to fix everything. And they're going to come in with a vengeance. I can't imagine. I went I did not watch the Washington versus Montana game. Obviously, we played, around the same time as well. But I went back and looked at the stats, and I was like, "Holy smokes! Montana must have did something against them." And I was like, "Wait, they had 105 passing yards. Okay, so they must have just ran the ball. Wait, no, they only had 127 rushing yards. What happened here?" So I don't think that Michigan even knows what to expect, really. You thought you were going to have a decently high-powered offense from Washington. I think people are feeling confident, but as Jim Harbaugh said in his presser this week, he said the second week of the season is the hardest week to prepare for because that's the first time that everyone's making adjustments. I have to imagine Washington's going to make 1,000 adjustments this week, and we may see a completely different team than we did in week 1.
I hope they do.
And Johnny, after watching Oregon struggle with Fresno, especially watching Kayvon not play in that second half, I got to assume you're feeling a lot more confident heading into that Oregon game, because I know Ohio State struggled in the first half with Minnesota. And, everyone went in before season started. They're like, okay, Oregon game, probably a win. Then that Minnesota game happened. They're like, oh, maybe Oregon could take advantage of some things. Now, Oregon State struggled with Fresno. Are you back to the same confidence level that most Ohio State fans were at before the season? Or how do you feel about the game after both teams have played 1 week?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think at halftime, I was at the Minnesota game, right, watching live. It was a great atmosphere. But I'm in a group chat with my best friends, Buckeye friends on Twitter, and they always like to share. And I'm sure your group chats do the same. Tweets, whether smart or dumb or whatever, you like to throw them in the group, right? Right. That's what that's what the group chats are there for. I really do.
Correct.
I'm sure they're doing it to me. Somebody's out there doing it to me. But no. So at halftime, somebody sent a tweet that said, somebody tweeted out and said, "We are about to start this season 0-2." And at that moment, I was like, yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. So, yeah, seeing that second half, seeing that, coaches obviously don't have meltdowns like I do as a fan, where I'm like, bench everybody, kill it's all over. Cut their scholarships, get them out of here. I don't want to see this garbage. And then they come out and dominate the second half. And then seeing Oregon do, like you said, to struggle with not an FCS school, but a group of 5 school, I assume is accurate to say, in Fresno State. Yeah, it puts me back to that early season confidence of an uncomfortable game at times, but still should be a win, somewhere between 10 and 16 points.
One thing I do want to know, I was telling Matt this before you guys were in the Zoom call. 2018 or 2019, I would say, probably the best Minnesota team they've had probably ever. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm.
And Fresno State is finally building back up from a really bad period as well. Would you agree with that? They had a really good run. They fell off a little bit. So in 2019, Minnesota and Fresno State played a football game. Minnesota won by 3 points.
Really?
I did not know that.
So I know Oregon did struggle with Fresno State, but I don't think the gap between Fresno and Minnesota is as big as most people expect.
I wonder, so a good mark would be like, what if Fresno State and Cincinnati played tomorrow? Where would Vegas have that? You know what I mean? Or a Boise, right? Or a UCF. It could be they're on those schools' level. Maybe not Cincinnati, but Boise or UCF.
I think a lot of the reason that I think they might be on that kind of level this year is just because everybody they have is like a 5th or 6th year player. They have Jake Haener, a really solid quarterback. Ronnie Rivers, a really solid running back. They have a senior offensive line. I think everybody but one person on their offensive line is a super senior. So they had a lot of veterans. And I think it's actually a perfect preparation matchup for Ohio State. They're a run-focused team with a quarterback who can throw it and a solid offensive line. That's pretty much how I would describe Ohio State right now. They've been running the ball a lot. They hit you deep over top, and they have the offensive line. They have the talent and the big guys up front to stop you from maneuvering them how you want to.
Yeah, I would say that's fair.
So when it comes to everything going on, do you think, how big of an impact do you think it'll have if Kayvon plays or not? Do you think it's like game altering, can change a win or loss for either team?
I'd hate to. if anybody can, it's a dominant pass rusher against a young quarterback, right? There's a reason why really great offensive guards don't go any higher than like the last pick of the first round. And there's a reason why the first 3 picks are always somewhere in there's an edge rusher. They just impact the game. KT's a great player. I don't know how great he can be, even if he plays, if his ankles is bothering him. He's in the air cast.
Mhm.
Hopefully, I hope he plays. I hope he's at close to 100% as possible. He deserves that chance. And Varsity Blues, give him the shot, let him go. These kids only get so many games in their life. Let them go. I would not think, because of how great the offensive line that Ohio State is, that it would be game altering. But if a position could do it, I would say it would be that position, the defensive end, the pass rush.
Just a small thing to note before we get into talking about with Michigan and Washington, ZTF, and a lot of talented rushers that Michigan has had of late. Obviously, they have to replace one. But in the Minnesota game, Stroud was not sacked and only hurried twice. On one of the 2 times he was hurried, he rolled out left, threw it across his body. The wide receiver tipped it, and it was picked off. So although a very, very small sample size, we don't know yet how Stroud performs under pressure. So if they're sending Kayvon, Funa, Popo, and maybe a Flo on a linebacker blitz, that could cause issue for Stroud. And as optimistic as I want to be, I think our only chance to win that game is if we put a lot of pressure on Stroud. And we need Kayvon or Flo to hit him. If anybody else hits him, it's not going to hit hard enough. We need Kayvon or Flo to hit him to try and rattle him in some sense.
Yeah. And one of my friends told me, like, hey, even after he threw a great touchdown to Olave in the 3rd quarter to kind of rally, he said, man, the body language and the demeanor from CJ Stroud was worrisome. He said he was just pouting and his teammates had to like lift him on the sideline. I was at the game, so again, I could not see that. But I think you're exactly right. See what if I don't mean to diminish Oregon. I think they're a good football team and everything, but I think they're playing with house money here. Let CJ Stroud and Ryan Day and company prove they can beat you if you over blitz. Let them prove it. You're playing with house money. Bluff. Come after them. Hit them. I say that's the way to beat it. I say that's more spread out, fast, agile Pac-12 type, a little bit smaller guys sometimes, but Oregon's obviously building up some beefy bodies now too. But that fast Pac-12 defense, stunt and twist and blitz up the middle, like we saw USC do against Ohio State in 2017 in the Rose Bowl. And those fast linebackers that our interior linemen could throw around if they ever got a hold of, but they didn't at times. Let that cause some problems. I think Ohio State starts 4 road graders and a guy at center. That's how I would describe it. 4 road graders and some guy. Now that guy's like a high 4, low 5 star, but he didn't have a good season last season. And he didn't even play in the Minnesota game. So who knows if the backup center plays again and has some low snaps that cause some pressure again. But yeah, that's what I would do is come after him. If you go down because a guy on a second career start throws off his back foot and beats you, then
You gotta live with
you're an Oregon fan. Are you going to be that upset about it?
No, it's like you got to live with that. There's nothing you can do at that point. My main focus would be send Flo at the center. That's when I was watching your guys' game. Send Flo at the center. Have Popo take up the center and see if them guards are taking a full speed flow. So transitioning that to Justin and Matt, we were talking about game-breaking players. Are there any players on either side of your teams who could break open the game or cause a win or a loss? Matt, in my opinion, I thought ZTF could have been that player. He's obviously not playing this season. These are 2 teams who we don't know 100% who they are. Obviously, Michigan struggled last year, and we don't know exactly why that was. They obviously won big last week against Western Michigan, who's been a solid team. Matt, you guys had a good year last year and then lost to Montana. So
Yeah.
what do you think is somebody on both of your teams who could maybe break open or seal this game for you?
I mean, I know for Washington, this is assuming that the O-line gets it together. Coach Huff has a come to Jesus moment with that group. and they can figure that out. I mean, that's where it starts for sure on offense, because on defense you have Trent McDuffie, you know, you have Edufan, you have all those guys, right? And that defense is already known. Those guys are already known. ZTF obviously would be an impact player, but like you said, he's hurt. So unfortunately, he's not going to be able to make that impact. You look on the offensive side of the ball, and I really think that running back rotation of McGrew, Pleasant, and Newton has potential to be huge for Washington. All eyes have been on Kate Otten, Drew Morris, that receiver core, which is not healthy right now, by the way, which is actually really important for that offensive strategy. The O-line's going to have to step up, but if they can, I think that running back room has the potential to break it wide open.
Okay, and Justin, what I mean, I know recently I've seen a lot of good pass rushers like Kwity Paye and guys like that coming out of Michigan. And, you know, not too long ago, you had a guy like Jabril Peppers who could make a few explosive plays here and there. And those explosive plays can really change the game. Do you think there's anybody on your team now who's capable of doing that? Obviously, we've seen them make plays against Western Michigan. But even though Washington lost, they're a different level than Western Michigan. Is there somebody who's going to make those plays?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I'm surprised you didn't say Giles Jackson. Giles Jackson is the Michigan transfer that I would say if there was anybody on that team that was going to somehow pull something out of his butt and have something work, it'd be some type of revenge game, you know, on Michigan. And he's going to, you know, he's going to have he wants the ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I could see him for Washington. You know, I could see them trying to target him more than they would in a normal week. Now on our side of the ball, I mean, on defense, Aiden Hutchinson is, you know, he was named the second biggest freak in college football, right? He is a very, very good player on the edge rusher there. So, you know, he's been a guy that can disrupt things. And then into the secondary, Daxton Hill is our nickel safety, and he's been making plays all over the place. So those guys on defense, on the offensive side of the ball, I'd say Blake Corum really separated himself in the running back room. He also had a 79-yard kick return. So talking about explosive plays, I'd say those are the guys that you're looking at.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that you bring up Giles Jackson because, you know, I feel like that was a given for this game too. I feel like he's going to be fired up, you know, assuming that the O-line gets it together. You're also relying on Drew Morris not being so shaken from that last game, you know, and I think from him, you're hoping that that's the floor. You're hoping that that game was just an outlier. And they've gone ahead and said Sam Hewitt's not going to play. So it is, you know, all eyes are pointed back on Dylan Morris for this game. And I think Jackson.
Your mic cut out there, Matt. I don't know what's going on with that.
Am I back? Hello?
Yep.
You're
okay,
back.
Cool. Whoops. Where did I, where did you guys stop hearing
You
me?
were talking about, shoot, I can't even remember now.
I think it was Dylan Morris.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with Morris, you know, you're hoping, like I said, he's hit his floor. You're hoping that that game was an outlier and all that. And I think with Giles Jackson, he also is going to have his chance to shine. Like you said, not only is it a revenge game, but that receiver room is, you know, with their rotations and guys being hurt, there's a lot of what ifs about that room in the first place. There's a lot of what ifs about that room going into the season anyways, with the guys that they had transferred in. So I think it's, you know, important that you bring that up. I just didn't mention it because I thought it'd be a given.
Now, question for, go ahead, Johnny.
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up to Justin, a name you didn't mention. I'll go ahead and ask a genuine question while throwing shade at our rivals here. You know, I look, you know, follow recruiting, and a couple years ago, not a lot of players that I would get excited about coming to OSU, but there is one, and I don't know if you didn't mention him. Is he going to play, especially with Ronnie Bell going down? Roman Wilson.
Yeah.
Is he going to look to have an increased role? Because I mean, that guy can straight move.
He can fly. That's for sure. So him and AJ Henning are going to be the guys that step up in that wide receiver room for Ronnie Bell, which Ronnie Bell going down is just like a pit in your stomach if you're a Michigan fan out there. Captain, you know, senior type of guy. We hope that he comes back, but he really was like the core of this football team. But Roman Wilson for sure will have an increased role. He had an end around on Saturday that went for 60 or something like that. So him and Henning will definitely step up. It'll be interesting to see how they try and piece that together, because I think what I heard was like, you don't replace Ronnie Bell, right? You try to, piece it in, put a couple guys here and there. But yeah, that's a good call out too.
And so are you guys, I mean, I feel like this is a really dumb question. Who are you guys rooting for in the other team's game? Are you guys rooting for your rival? Or are you rooting to see? Because obviously
Never.
it looks, yeah, I was hoping to see. Because so what the trend is around a lot of the Pac-12 schools outside of Oregon and Washington is, hey, we need the Pac-12 to win.
And I understand that you do that. The SEC started that years ago. So and other conferences start to do it. I once had a Clemson fan tell me, yeah, you have to do it because they do it, right? Root for the conference. It is tempting at times, but not with those guys. I will say I was tempted for them 2 years ago to beat Bama. But I attempted to root for them, but like they just couldn't get out of their own way. I'm convinced Shea Patterson doesn't open his eyes when the window gets tight. I mean, but yeah, I mean, if I can't make these jokes anymore, so I'm not going to. But I used to joke like, if Michigan was playing ISIS, I still wouldn't root for them. I'm not gonna say that. Obviously, I wouldn't say that on mic, right? Like, you can't say those types of things. I would never say that.
That's like current events 101 right there.
A bit topical.
Yeah,
maybe.
No, I mean, I do think it's very different. I don't know, for whatever reason. The Big Ten is different than the SEC in that I will say, like, when it comes to bowl season, outside of Ohio State and Michigan State, I root for pretty much all Big Ten teams. But when it comes down to those two for us, I've got a lot of friends here that are Michigan State and Ohio State friends, and we all stick it to each other enough when they lose. So there aren't very many times when I've bet on them a couple times. I'll say that. I bet on Ohio State to beat Minnesota by, what was it, 13.5. So I won that one. So I'll root for them when I'm gambling, but that's about it.
That was a business decision, though. There's a difference between a business decision and a fan decision.
Exactly, for sure.
So, but I mean, with money on the line, that's interesting. With money on the line, you have to be actively like rooting for another touchdown, right?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
So you're a Buckeye fan.
Well, hold on. So here's the thing. I hedge my fandom, because if Ohio State loses, then I'm still happy. If they win, then I win money. So
what's the old saying, Michael? Put your money where your mouth is.
Man, I mean, I don't think I could ever put money on Washington, because I don't know if I would all trash talk aside, could I trust them?
After Saturday, probably not.
All right, guys, sorry about that. We had to do a jump cut. I did not have my Zoom set up properly, and we're having some good discussion here talking about the games coming up. Thank you again to Johnny and Justin for coming on. Matt, thank you for all the graphic work you do for us.
Of course, that's what I'm here for.
Does anyone know where we left off? What were we talking about during the break? The rivalry, Justin. You had a question about the rivalry?
Yeah, I was wondering, obviously we know the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry, right? Well, we know it, but I think that's pretty big across the country. I don't know. Actually, that's a good question. Does the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry, like, do you guys feel that it's that prevalent, like, come that weekend in November? No,
I feel like the history is there, and like the fanfare is there, and everything is there. Yeah. But until Michigan wins a game, like, no disrespect intended, I don't care about that game at all.
It makes sense. I mean, I thought, well, I guess in 2016 and 2018, was it like, oh shit, I got to tune into this?
Are they really Washington? That's
is that what it was?
So,
for Washington?
Yeah,
Washington's only beaten us twice since 2000,
and it was within the last 5 years, right?
Yeah, and it was 2016 and 2018.
The year Washington made the playoff, and the year that Oregon was not good.
Yeah, the year we won 4 games. So, yeah. I mean, I get why people nationally don't watch Oregon and Washington as a rivalry, because either Washington's been really good in the 90s, or outside of that, Oregon's been really good and Washington has had issues. Not just with football, it's just been administration and they've been handcuffed and stuff like that.
We've already talked about that like 10 times on
yeah.
this show. So
yeah, so we're not going to dive into that one.
I think the national media doesn't do you any favors because I
agreed.
I wasn't really aware of the rivalry. I promise I'm not, you guys brought me on your show. I'm not trying to be disrespectful or shade. I promise. I'm just saying, like, yeah, maybe then if the national media could do, the national media doesn't do any favors for the Pac-12.
And
I get it.
I
get it. There's not there hasn't been eliteness come out of there for a while, but like, my goodness, that you still can have some quality football. I would love. Would you guys sacrifice earlier kickoffs out west if it meant more people around the country would tune in?
I live in Florida, so yes.
I go to school. I go to school in South Dakota, so also yes.
Okay, well, the fan bases have spoken.
Yeah. So
we are the representatives.
I do love Pac-12 after dark, though. I will say that.
Nothing beats it.
By that time, though, I just think so many of us are like,
I'm either too obliterated or asleep. Yeah.
So, and that's part of why we started the show. We know Washington and Oregon have rabid fan bases who hate each other, but there's nothing talking about that. And there's nothing talking about the Pac-12, really. Everybody who talks about the Pac-12, hate to say it, they're boring. They're monotone. They're all analytical, and they just talk analytics all day. And there's
stats freaks, man. It's crazy.
Yeah,
did you like? It sounds like UCLA's trying to bring a little edge to it with their graphics and media department.
I love it.
You guys see my sissy blue AR-15?
I love it. I love it so much.
They're not going to be allowed to do it. We tried to do the same things when Chip Kelly was here. He shut it down. Just for instance, UCLA had to take down their header. Chip Kelly called their social media guy, had to take it down.
Seriously, they already did that?
Mm-hmm. It's not there no more. Go check their Twitter.
That was amazing.
I'm actually going to check this now. I didn't know this.
Yeah, it's not their header anymore. The former Oregon SID guy quote tweeted it and said, "I too know what it's like to get a caller ID saying."
Can they at least do the? Can they at least do the
video?
The video.
Yeah, he's fine with that. He basically, what his like philosophy is like header, profile pictures, and all that needs to stay the same, stay constant, stay consistent, stay professional.
Is that Chip? Whatever. Is that Chip being a GM again? That's the thing that always hangs him up.
Don't remind
right?
me of Chip at GM, man. He's a
that's what
he's back on the Eagles.
He could have been an NFL coach, but he said, "Nah, give me roster control." Like, dude, you were a good NFL coach. Took a full.
Well, that's what I would tell him
wins.
here. I would tell him, and once he said, "Hey, we got to change the Twitter," I'd be like, "No.
Change running backs too, huh?"
Football coach, X's and O's, and Jimmys and Joes. That's your job. I'll run the Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. He brought Philadelphia from 4 wins to 12 wins, and he's like, "Okay, now give me roster control."
It just
downhill.
Haven't recovered since.
But talking about, you were mentioning the perception of the Pac-12. Would you guys be surprised to say, I don't know if you took a deep look into the rankings, in both the coaches and the AP poll, the Pac-12 is the second most ranked teams behind the SEC by one team.
Is that like 10 through 25 heavy?
10 through 15 heavy, and then a couple at around 20 to 25.
That's interesting.
UCLA, USC, and Oregon are all 10 to 15.
UCLA, USC. They have, and so what do they have, like 5 total?
Yes, 5.
Utah and
SEC
Arizona
has
State.
6. The Big 10 has 4. ACC or Big 12 has 4. ACC has 3. The group of 5 has 2. Independents have 1, being Notre Dame, obviously.
So I'm guessing it was Ohio State, Penn State, Wisconsin, and Iowa, and that was it.
Yes, Indiana dropped out.
Indiana dropped out. They can't put Michigan or Minnesota. This is why this presidential campaign. When I'm president of the United States, I'm going to pan preseason polls. There's big. If Minnesota, if everybody at powers that be just decided Minnesota had a 7 next to its name last week, this week it would have an 11 next to its name.
Right
there you go. But because we didn't draw a number now, it's just like Auburn is the beneficiary in the SEC year in and year out, they got a lot of losses, but we started them ranked high. Miami, right?
Oof.
Miami's going to at least drop to only like 40th best because we started them at 16th best by the time season's over.
They're still in
That's
my
just
top
a rant.
25.
But I will say I am happy for you that at least at this point they're getting some love, and that people are saying like, hey, there's some quality football out here to be shown.
The fans are still going to ignore it and say the Pac-12 is terrible. The Pac-12 could have 12 teams ranked, and they're going to be like, the Pac-12 sucks.
Well, that's what that's the same thing. This is the same hate Oklahoma gets, the same hate Notre Dame gets. Once you like reach tiers, fans only care about if you can reach the next tier. So it's like Notre Dame going to get dragged in the playoffs again. And I'm like, Notre Dame is better than every other program except for like 5. Oklahoma, same thing.
The
like,
Pac-12,
I get it.
But they've gotten to that second tiered. So if they don't make it to that first tier, then people call them trash, right?
But same thing. The Pac-12.
They need USC or Oregon to step up.
Yeah, the Pac-12's trash. Well, not really. They're just not got an elite powerhouse.
There's no top-heavy team.
There's no top-heavy team, but they can cannibalize each other, which again, to the average fan, looks worse. When really it's just parity, right?
It's good teams.
Right, that's good.
Yeah,
that's what we've all been asking for in college football,
competition.
Right?
Yeah. What they really want is the SEC model,
Mm-hmm.
a top-heavy guy and parity down here, where we just excuse all the cannibalism. Mm-hmm. If you don't have the top-heavy guy, they'll do what they've done to the Pac-12 for years and just say, "Oh, they're all not very good." I'm like, well, if you're the 15th best team in the country, that means you're better than 115 teams. That's really good.
I think they really just need USC or Oregon to take that next step. Because I mean, Matt, I would have thrown Washington in that, but I think after last week,
after last week, that's quite the blemish.
On top of recruiting. Recruiting was already a blemish. Then you lose to an FCS team, and you're expected to go lose in week 2. You have a potential trip up game in week 3. So it's not looking, as of right now, things aren't looking great. We could come back next week and it could completely change. But as of right now, it feels like Oregon and USC are the Pac-12's only chance of getting that top tier team. Maybe Chip Kelly becomes Chip Kelly of old and UCLA's that third team. Maybe Washington fixes whatever issue they had week 1 and they're that third team. But as of right now, the Pac-12 really needs Oregon or USC to step up. And at least this year, I don't know if that's going to happen.
I might even throw Utah in that conversation at this point. They're pretty consistently
Utah
good.
in no conversations, man. They're consistently good, and then they go to the Pac-12 championship and get blown out.
Yeah, it's true.
That's what we just did. What we just did. They didn't take the next step, but you admit they're a good football team.
Well, see, for years they were beating up on the so until this year, the North was carrying the Pac-12 South, similar to how the Big Ten was. One side was carrying the other side, and they were beating at the time a terrible UCLA team. At the time, a terrible Arizona team. At the time, a bad Arizona State team. At the time, a Helton-led dumpster fire USC team, and Colorado.
Yeah,
so
that
makes
sense.
I didn't have a lot to go off of. Now, if Washington was beating Oregon when they made the playoffs, they were beating Stanford, they were beating Cal, who was good at the time. Like, it was like, okay, respectable. As much as I hate them, respectable. But Utah just needs to beat one solid team more than once a year for me to be like, okay, maybe they're good.
Right.
Yeah.
So now going on to the Big Ten, I know the Big Ten and Pac-12 do have a lot of relationships. Everyone was assuming if they did have mergers going on, the Pac-12 and Big Ten would be coincided in one way or the other, if anything like that happened because of the history. So do you guys feel it's anything of the same? Do you think that the Big Ten is deep aside from Ohio State? Because again, a lot of the people in the Southeast and on ESPN or whatever just dismiss the rest of the Big Ten aside from Ohio State. Although Michigan State, everyone says is terrible. I think it's a not bad football program. I think they could beat a lot of teams in the ACC. A lot of
20
teams in the
transfers. That dude went out and got 20. I did not know that till yesterday. 20 transfers.
And you know what's crazy? USC and Florida State have more than that. They both have the most. They're at like crazy. 27, I think, each.
That's your entire roster. If they all start.
I think to answer your question, look, if and I got this at Zach Smith's Menace to Sports podcast, but if football season ended today, the Big Ten was the best conference just after 1 week. And yes, Alabama was top heavy again, but they were the best. that you had a really competitive matchup in Penn State and Wisconsin. They're that same thing. Good, not elite teams. Minnesota might be a good, not elite team. Michigan State might be a good, not elite team. You know, Michigan can claw and maybe get back to that good, not elite level. You know, the way they recruit, top 10, top 13, that it's there. Iowa looked pretty impressive.
Really
That's
good.
another team that people are just not going to get excited about. But you know, they're probably going to go out and win 9 games and maybe 10.
And they're going to beat whoever they play in their bowl game.
Yeah, probably so. Unless they ran into a buzzsaw of somebody that's like, you know, was
Had
like
an injury or something.
Well, you know, sometimes you match up the 5th best team with the 11th best team. And if, you know, if it's something like that, like when they ran into McCaffrey that year.
Oregon drops the Pac-12 championship to UCLA or something and end up playing Iowa.
Right. And you're clearly better than them. You got the favorable matchup. But yeah, I think the Big Ten, I don't know about Justin, but I think the Big Ten depth as of right now is as good as it's looked in a long time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that, and I actually think, weirdly enough, Michigan could be the one determining factor to if people think that the Big Ten is good or not. Right. If Michigan has a 6-6 season, they're going to say, you know, and if there's, yeah, right. And then so I think, weirdly enough, it is going to be on Michigan's shoulders there. But I still think that, you know, if Penn State can go out there and now, you know, have a whatever year that was where they did beat Ohio State, you know, they've got a shot there. You know, I think Wisconsin, I think everything you said is true. Iowa could easily run the table in the West. And then you've got, you know, a great team on that West side going up against an Ohio State in the East. You know, I think for to your guys' point, and this is the same about, you know, the Pac-12 as it is the Big Ten, but I think the Big Ten's biggest issue is nobody has come for Ohio State for that crown. If there was one year, even in the past 5, you know, well, it's been what, 4 in a row? Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. If anybody, you know, this year and the next couple can dethrone Ohio State, that just legitimizes the rest of the conference, right? It doesn't happen often enough right now, so people think that nobody else matters, right? And people are going to write them off. So, you know, that's where I think that the SEC actually has been okay, because Alabama, even though they've won the Natty, they still sometimes haven't won the SEC championship.
Georgia has been there to compete with them. They've had
right.
And I think a lot of it is they want someone to compete like consistently. They want the same team. They don't want Iowa 1 year, Michigan State 1 year, Penn State 1 year. They like Alabama's competing every year, Georgia's competing every year, and then a third team jumps in there sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think Matt, let me know if you disagree, but I think it's the same situation for the Pac-12.
Yep, that is definitely the Pac-12's problem.
The most hype a Pac-12 team will get is when they beat Oregon.
Yep.
That's the only time they get any respect in the polls. That's the only time they get a chance to get game day. That's the only time they're getting all the praise. They got to beat Oregon. It used to be beat USC, but USC's been down so long. It's okay. You don't beat Oregon, we don't care. We're not going to watch you. You're not good.
And like you said, yeah, with like teams cycling through, because obviously it's just kind of in the Big Ten, it's Ohio State and everybody else. You see teams from the South cycle through all the time. You've had USC come out of there. You've had Colorado come out of there. You've had Arizona State compete up there. Utah obviously has come out of there. UCLA. I mean, you've just had teams cycle through
Arizona
there,
in
being
2014.
in and out. That's right. Oh my God, I forgot about Arizona. They've been so bad for so long. But I mean, you just have the South constantly cycling through, and the North has had what? Oregon most of the time, Washington and Stanford. I mean,
Stanford
if you're
won
talking
once, yes, that missed block with the Anthony Thomas.
Yeah,
and
but
Oregon
I mean,
was
like
the better team, and Oregon got the better bowl, I believe, that year too.
Yeah, but it's the same problem.
It's the same issue. It's so Ohio State maybe has had that year where they were sanctioned. You know, somebody else got that spot. Oregon's had the year that they went 4 wins, and then the year that they went, I think, 7 wins, where Washington got that spot. Other than that, it's been the exact same thing. It's Ohio State and whoever, Oregon and whoever. And it's like, okay, That team might win, that team might lose. And half of the time, even if that team beats Ohio State, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, it was a fluke. Ohio State's still better than them. And if Oregon lost to Utah, it's like, okay, that's still a fluke. Like, okay, they got a good game, you know. I don't know if it's as an Oregon fan, they respect us, but I hate that they don't respect our opponents. And it hurts us that they think so lowly of our opponents.
Mm-hmm.
I think for Oregon too, from the rest of the country, people still think of Chip Kelly and Marcus Mariota and those guys. Like they seriously, because I mean, to be honest, you haven't played on a national level since then. Like there hasn't been a college football playoff, appearance. And so when, like Johnny said, when the national media doesn't do you any favors until you get to that point, then you kind of go by the wayside until you are in that national title conversation.
Go ahead, Johnny.
Well, I was going to say, case in point, I was having a Twitter space chat with somebody the other day, and they said, hey, they thought this Oregon Ohio State game was going to be a really low scoring rock fight, which I was like, I just can't see that. But anyways, they said this Oregon team you're going up against ain't like the Oregon teams of old where you just push them around and they're small in the trenches. And I was like, well, hold on. To be fair, last time we faced them, they weren't the Oregon team of old. They weren't light up front and the team that got shoved around by Stanford back in the day. But they were beefy. Like they were getting penetration in that game. Part of it, we were allowing the nose tackle to come through so we could trap block it. But that defensive line got pushed. It was not small guys.
Our issue was depth.
But the perception was, well, last time you played Oregon, they were still the small guys. No, they weren't.
And Marcus Mariota was still on the field, so they're like, oh, okay. They're still small, fast,
it's
flashy.
Small, fast guy. Yeah.
Little did they know, like, two of the best defensive tackles in the NFL are from that Oregon line. The left tackle from, I think the backup left tackle now, from the Detroit Lions is on that offensive line. NFL offensive linemen are on that team. Now, that might be the only NFL players from that team, but the line was solid. And
was that who on the defensive line? You had
DeForest Buckner and Eric Armstead and Justin Hollins, all three of which start in the NFL.
Tweeners, right? Little guys, right?
6'7", 300 pounds,
right? Like
giant, yeah.
One of them played center on our basketball team, and our basketball team doesn't suck.
You mentioned Penei Sewell, right? That's who you're talking about?
No, Tyrell Crosby. Penei was a freshman in the 2016-17 season.
Case in point, a great offensive line as a guy not far from Cincinnati, where I'm from. I'm screaming for the Bengals to take the guy in the first round. So, like, you know,
and then the Lions decided to move him to the opposite side of the line.
Yeah, that's a Detroit thing. I don't.
That's even when we draft the right guy, once he gets here, then we're gonna screw him up.
Who everyone thinks is one of the best left tackle prospects since a guy's like Pace. It's like, okay, well, go right.
When the Bengals passed on him to get Jamar Chase, who is a good player, but
I was so mad. I wanted him to play with Burrow.
We had what? Taj Boyd and Justin Ross, I think, already.
Justin Ross, before he got hurt, was leading the league in receiving yards. He had 500 yards through 5 games.
And you could have you can get a really good receiver in the second round. They did end up getting a tackle in the second round, but I think the gap. We got
Rondale Moore in like the
Are you guys talking about John Ross? You said Justin Ross.
John Ross, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
He's a Husky.
Or T. Higgins. Am I talking the kid from T. Higgins, the kid from Clemson? Clemson receiver.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bad. Get those Clemson freaks mixed up sometimes. But anyway, my tweet was, I think it was Brandon Peters or whoever the Bengals backup is. I forget who, but it was like, hey, it's going to be awesome to watch Brandon throw to Jamar Chase come game 11. The guy just literally had surgery because you couldn't protect him. You had an opportunity to protect him, and you said, well, let's get him somebody to throw to from his back. I don't understand.
So, Johnny, I was on, I don't know if you know who Mark Rogers is, but he's also an Ohio State fan. I was on his show literally 2 hours ago, and I asked him how does it feel that the best defensive end in college football is played at Columbus at least once a year outside of the COVID year. For how long? Since Kayvon's coming to Columbus, and honestly, I think Zach Harrison, once Kayvon's gone, might be taking that spot. So like, it's the one time you guys are playing and you don't have the best edge rusher. Is that weird?
Well, last year I will say Zach might go to the NFL this year as well, so we may have to recycle. Yeah, it'll be his third year.
Oh,
yeah. Last year he was on the team, but we didn't get a lot of edge rush. Part of it, I think, was COVID. Part of it was rotation, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, if Kayvon starts really wreaking havoc, it will be like, I can tell you, I can tell you right now, people, the fickle fans of Ohio State are going to start calling for Zach Harrison's head. Like, why can't he do that? Why, that's what he's supposed to do. I know it's going to happen right now.
See, Kayvon's not like the athlete that guys like Chase Young were, but Kayvon is one of the most just naturally gifted at playing the position edge rushers. He's not the athletic freak of Chase Young. He's not as refined fundamentally as the Bosa brothers, but he's just naturally like, somehow he'll mess up his form and still blow by the tackle. And it's just like,
if the quarterback falls down, it's all the same.
Yeah, exactly. And Kayvon's just naturally good at getting the quarterback down. He won't do anything, technique perfect. He doesn't have the most athleticism of anybody. He just goes out there and somehow gets to the quarterback. And it'll be fun to see. I think he's probably our only chance at it. So wrapping some of this up, we've been going for about 50 minutes now. Let's start with predictions. We'll start with what I think we would all agree is going to be the less followed game for the week. Michigan and Washington. And we'll let the losers go first. Matt, what do you think the score prediction is? And who do you think?
He's been waiting to say that all day.
Yeah. First of all, rude. All right. I've had a tough weekend, and this is how I'm treated. Okay, that's fine. That's
Side
fine.
note for Johnny and Justin: Matt also plays NAIA football, and his team lost before Washington played.
We won this. Hey, we won this weekend. We won this
Hey!
weekend. We won this weekend.
Where do you play at?
Dakota Wesleyan. We play in the GPAC, which is like Morningside, Northwestern, all those guys. So
nice. I played at Concordia here in Ann Arbor. But
yeah. They're looking really good this year, by the way.
They've been playoff team the last 2 years. So
yeah,
or maybe 3, I think. I don't know.
Man.
I think it's back-to-back conference champs. Sorry, go ahead.
You're all good.
Tangent.
Back to predictions.
Yeah.
Matt, what do you think the score prediction is, and who do you think is a key player for Washington in that game? Not just like the game breaker. Who do you think has the biggest impact on the game? Not who do you hope. Who does?
Who does? Dylan Morris, 100%, 110 million %.
And what's the
score? I'm saying UW turns it around. I'm taking Washington 21-17.
Johnny had to laugh there. I seen that.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to. It was genuine. I wasn't trying to put it on.
No, I have to be a homer here. Like what? I'm just gonna get crucified if I don't.
If you're a betting man, are you betting on Washington?
Oh, no chance in hell. No shot.
All right, Justin, score prediction and the player who does change the game.
All right, so I think there aren't many people that comes into the big house and win at night. So we'll have quite the electric atmosphere, I think. So outside of Ohio State, not many people come into the big house and win at on any day. Actually,
I know what team has done that.
Hold on. I don't want to talk about it. Well, last year you can say everybody came in and beat them there.
Yeah,
so
that's an anomaly. But your
Exactly.
score prediction.
All right,
and
sorry.
The biggest impact player, like who's got that crazy game?
So I think Washington's going to struggle on offense again. I'm going to go with 28-10 as the final. I think Cade McNamara, the quarterback, I think it'll be interesting to see how he does against a not Mac opponent. See if he can be as efficient as he was, because he was the second most efficient quarterback in all of college football last week.
And Johnny, me and you are going to be less informed on this, but we're also going to make our picks on the Oregon-Washington game.
Oh, boy.
Who do you think wins the
Michigan-Washington
game? Or Michigan-Washington game. Yeah. I'm sorry, I cannot talk. Who do you think wins the Michigan-Washington game? Don't have to name a specific player, because honestly, I don't know a player from both teams who could change the game that much.
Yeah, I mean, without watching, I would know Blake Corum was always a solid player throughout recruitment. So if Justin said he was good Saturday, I believe him. So Justin, Blake Corum, Roman Wilson on offense, I would say that I would pick that team up north to take the win. I think it's just hard for me. I didn't watch a snap of the Washington game, but it's just hard for me to pick them after the Montana game. So I would actually pick something like 38-17.
Wow.
So I am now, Matt, you can vouch. I was really high on Washington going into the season, correct?
He was higher on Washington than I was when we did our first poll of the year. So yes.
I have them 11th in my poll.
Wow.
But after watching their last game, and I did watch Michigan's last game, I do think they struggled a little bit to start with Western Michigan's front, which was weird to see.
They did.
But I think Western Michigan's front's better than Washington. So I think that Michigan wins 42-7.
Wow.
Wow.
All right,
Wow.
Mike.
Wow.
Just based off of your offensive line play, I don't see how you can make a drastic enough improvement to keep that game close. That offensive line play was putrid, and Montana's defensive line isn't their strong part of their defense.
No, it's not. You think Washington's defense just falls over and dies like that?
No,
though?
I think that your offense loses points. Like their defense is going to score points.
Okay.
I'm going to have fun on Saturday night. That's all I know. If that's the case.
Your quarterback can't get pressured that much and not, get his arm hit and somebody catch a ball, or he fumbles going back on a pass, or if he's getting hit that much, there's going to be turnovers and they're going to get short fields and they're going to score on those.
That's
as good as your defense
argument.
is, as good as Trent McDuffie is, they're going to score on those.
It would have to be, because usually Jim Harbaugh is fundamentally opposed to scoring in the 40s unless the defense does some of it. So.
Oh shit.
Well, they're playing FCS Washington, so. I gotta get my jobs.
I wish I had a comeback, but I can't say anything after this weekend. I really can't.
All right, so now we're gonna dive into the big game, the big noon kickoff, Ohio State and Oregon. Johnny, we'll start with you. Who do you think wins that game? What is the score and the big difference in it?
I think this game will look a lot like the Minnesota game looked for Buckeye fans. Competitive at times, maybe even frustratingly competitive. Maybe even find yourself down for back and forth for 2.5 quarters. However, I think talent wins out. Big talent makes big flashy plays, exactly like you saw against Minnesota, whether it was the strip stack, scoop and score by the two freaks on the defensive line, or whether Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave just get loose and run wild on a big play. So I think Ohio State eventually wins where the box score looks comfortable, but the game was not that comfortable. I think 38-24 Buckeyes with pick your poison, but I think Garrett Wilson, because you can line him up in the slot and you'll have to D him up with safety sometimes. Just Ryan Day is just too good at manipulating people with that.
So for myself, I've grown a little more confident now that Jamal Hill and DJ James are playing. I now have confidence in our DBs to not, let those guys run as open as Minnesota was letting them run. And I think that we can make just enough plays, especially with how explosive Kayvon, Flo, and Sewell looked at forcing turnovers. Just enough plays to win the game. I also have it a fairly high scoring, but I think both defenses score. Both defenses for sure score in this game, if I had to guess. I think it's a 41-38 game, Oregon. And the key player in this game is going to be Justin Flo. I think he's going to force up, obviously they're not going to give up on Master Teague. Master Teague's a solid player, but I don't know if he's going to run into Flo so many times and hold on to that ball. So I'm hoping we can force some turnovers on the running backs if we get them in space. Obviously, they're really good at breaking guys' ankles in space. They're great backs, but I think we can win a close one. 3-point win, which is all I could hope for.
What if I told you real quick, Master Teague is likely to get less than 5 carries that game, and you're going to be dealing with the 2 other guys?
5 fumbles. So now we're going to go to Justin. With Ohio State and Oregon playing, with Ohio State being your biggest rival, what do you think the score prediction is, and who do you think is the key player in that game?
So I actually think Ohio State's defense stinks, but I think their offense is better than their offense is better than their defense is bad. So it doesn't matter how bad their defense is because their offense is that good. So I think that they are going to score over 50 actually here. I think they're going to score 54. I think they give up about 35. That offense is it doesn't now. CJ Stroud's in his second game. He's going to get in a rhythm. I think they're going to be pretty dang good there.
Justin, we're not friends anymore.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
54 points.
I watched them score how many against Minnesota?
Is
right?
Minnesota's defense better than Oregon's?
Justin, I just think that they're listen
in the
to
rain,
me. Hold
in
on.
the rain, in the rain.
In the rain, and CJ Stroud went 2 for 15 in the first half or whatever he did. So if he can put together a full game, they're very capable of scoring 50. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, he never got pressured in his wide receivers.
Listen, I've been beaten down by Ohio State's offense too much in my life. I can't do it anymore.
You did ask a man with PTSD to
Yes,
this score
exactly.
prediction.
Exactly.
When he said a 50, I was over here like, oh, really more.
Dude,
that is.
I was like,
Wow.
if we score 50, man, Kayvon, you're going to the second round, man. I don't care. That's just too much. Like, I understand we could lose. We could even lose by 20. They're not scoring no 50 points, man.
Hey, I also said Washington was not going to lose to Montana this week, and look how that turned out.
Yeah,
So,
but like,
You know,
are 50
things
points?
happen.
50? Matt,
Mike,
all
things
right.
happen.
Let me get off
Yeah.
of this before I'm just sitting here flabbergasted. Matt, obviously, your biggest rival in Oregon is playing against a really good Ohio State team.
Maybe
Do you think they score 50, first of all? And who wins? And what is the key player?
I do not think that Ohio State scores 50, but I do not trust Anthony Brown and that Oregon offense enough
Same.
for them to really be able to compete that well. I think Ohio State beats them pretty soundly. I'll give them 35-21. I just don't think Oregon's offense will really get it done. I think CJ Stroud is just going to have a day.
I'm not too mad at that. If one of them is like a last 2-minute touchdown to seal it, I wouldn't be too mad at that.
Yeah.
Who do you think is going to be the key player for Ohio State then?
CJ Stroud still. I think it's
CJ
going
Stroud?
to be. Yeah, I think just
Justin?
because.
Same person?
I actually think it's going to be, one of the running backs. I mean, pick one really at this point because they're
Teague,
5
please.
deep, right? I mean, if I had to guess, I'd go Mayan Williams, but I think they're going to pound it pretty good, because they're going to want to get CJ Stroud in a rhythm, not try to have him do too much. But their run games, it's damn good.
So, Matt, you're contrasting that with Stroud. Why do you think Stroud completely goes off?
I just think that Oregon defense, honestly, for as good as they are, I just think they're going to underestimate because he looked, I don't know. I mean,
Mortal?
he looked a bit raw at times in his first game. I just really think that he's going to ball out. I think he's going to be ready to go. I think, that home crowd behind him is just going to get him going. I don't know.
They'll shock us all, and it'll be a Ty Thompson versus Quinn Ewers game.
Oh, my God.
Man, some Ohio State fans would be really happy. Someone hate it. But Johnny, Justin, we want to thank you guys for coming on. Do you guys want to plug anything before we close out of the show? Justin, where can we find you?
Yeah, so we're at BlueByNinety on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all of it. We put out a few podcasts every week. If you're a Michigan fan out there too, if you're going to any games, we host a pretty big tailgate right outside the stadium too. So other than that, you can find all our stuff on our social handles.
And their social handles are also right next to their pictures, as every episode. We have BlueByNinety and Scarlet Great JL. Johnny, where else can they find you?
Yeah, if you follow me on Twitter, please follow my co-host, Florida Corey. His father passed away actually yesterday, so we're all, staying strong for him and keeping him in our thoughts. So it's same as me at Scarlet Great CT. You can find us on Instagram, Scarlet and Great. We haven't been posting the audio version of the podcast very much because YouTube actually pays money. So we have been partnered with Chat Sports, and we're doing video mostly only on YouTube. You could find us youtube.com/GoBucks.
There you go. You got the URL. Anybody have any closing remarks before we get out of here?
Thank you. No, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us. For sure, it's been fun.
Loved
Has been
having you
fun.
guys. Go Grizzlies.
Yeah, go Grizz. That's all I gotta say.
But again,
We're all Grizzlies this week.
today. All right, guys, we want to thank you guys for tuning into the Ducks and Dogs podcast. This has been a special, longer episode of the Ducks and Dogs podcast, kicking off probably the biggest week for both of these teams. And it'll be fun to see how this game goes. We will catch you guys next week. We'll probably be talking more about how these games went, because honestly, Washington and Oregon's matchups are less than stellar. So thank you guys for watching. Check the podcast out on Spotify and YouTube. Follow everyone on Twitter. Their ats are under their names. And I hope you guys have a great day, and go Ducks.